Greetings. I just can't figure out what's going on. So I switched devices. So now I'm using my mobile device. Of course, I'm going to have a completely different set of tools at my access to sort of operate and run this show. Um, I'm not seeing any of my chat right now, so I'm not sure how that is going to affect my ability to move forward. Let's see. Okay, Supreme Divinity, greetings and salutations. Hello, Kiona. Thank you so much. Yeah, this may be a better option, but it's going to be problematic for me in that I'll now have to sort of prop the the phone up in a way that it can see me and I can see you, um, but I can also be animated. I tend to be animated when I talk, and if I have to hold the phone during that process, that could be a problem. So, Keon, I'm gonna need your help. I'm glad that the picture is clearer and that everything is better. It's just much smaller for me. I'm having a little bit of a moment right now trying to find the most appropriate way to mount my phone so that I can sort of talk and read your chat without having to keep up with it. I think I might have found a resolution. There we go. Greetings and salutations this Monday, March 16th, 2020, as we deal with life, as we deal with love, as we deal with reality, um, and as we deal with COVID 19. So I pray all divine, all blessed health and wellness on each and every one of you. I pray that you are taking all necessary precautions. Greetings, Lachelle. All necessary precautions and measures to protect both your family and yourself and your community. And I pray that you are, at this point, taking this seriously. Um, this is indeed not a test. This is not a drill. This is real life. And we only have one opportunity individually, but also as a community to get this right. So beware the precautions. I'm hearing that all kind of craziness is happening out there in the world. People are having difficulties getting access to toilet paper and cleaning supplies. Much of which I sort of was ready for to some degree, because in this type of ministry, we have certain products on hand anyway, as a normal part of ritual cleanliness. I'm surprised at the number of people who aren't washing their hands generally as a normal part of everyday life, who aren't taking hygienic precautions as a normal part of everyday life. And it took something like this to sort of jar your attention to get you to snap to get you to do your part, and to now be concerned. What makes that difficult? Greetings, Mia, and anyone that I may have missed. The chat in this format is popping up and disappearing. So unless I'm fumbling with the phone, and I know y'all don't want me doing that, that would be a distraction. I'm only seeing the chat as it shows up. So please type your questions in all capital letters. Um, Keon is going to help me to maintain chat to some degree. I'm still going to reload the chat from my desktop. I'm just not going to broadcast the show from my desktop. And so I might be able to be in the chat just as many of you are, and then communicate the questions through Kiona, who is my chat room monitor, who helps me to keep some semblance of order in the chat, because it's a big job to sort of talk and maintain my thoughts and respond to your questions and your ideas, and then fumble with the chat too. These bigger shows, I just don't know how they're doing it without help, without staff, without hands on. I don't know how they manage to do that. That's a trick, a little bit of magic I haven't figured out yet. But I have managed to learn how to use what others might. Yeah, I like that, Virgos and hygiene. I'm sort of known for hygiene, even outside of the scope of something like a COVID 19. I'm the kind of person you can't cough in my house because I've got a can of Lysol spray in every corner, in every room in the house. The minute I detect a symptom, I'm on it. Even in those last few days when we were filming and on set, I also have Asperger's, which some of you know. So I play around with numbers and synchronicity and patterns a great deal in my head. All that counting is going on even during normal functioning. So I'm counting, how many ethnicities are in the room, how many men are in the room, how many women are in the room, but also who's sniffling and who's coughing. And on a return day, oh yeah, the essential oils, I got it all down. The Florida water, it's all within arm's reach. Trust me, beloved, trust me. So the next day we return to filming this particular project. And of course, I'm hypersensitive. I'm knowing and aware. And I can't help but sort of make this announcement that, okay, I've noticed some people, are sniffling a little bit and coughing a little bit who weren't doing so the next day, and we must maintain our precautions. So, as I was saying in the episode 71, before I had to go into 71.2, I was very proud of the staff, the crew, the staff where we had location and holding, the crew and the talent who were actually there for this particular project. I was very proud. I was very impressed by everyone's overall general awareness to hygiene, uh, people being conscious of wearing gloves, even to pour coffee and have access to snacks and the coming and goings of our general activity. I think in a 12-hour day I must have washed my hands 16 times in that environment, and then started counting days, which would have been natural for me to do from the minute they said wrap until the very present moment. So we've had some interaction in social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And everyone's fine. No one's had any symptoms. No one's had a cough or a throat issue or a nose issue or anything. And so I'm grateful for that. But I'm prepared to hunker down. I'm prepared to be still. I'm prepared to be quiet if necessary for an extended period of time, as we as a nation, as a society, as communities, as families figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to continue to move forward in this apparent pandemic that we are now calling COVID 19. As the knowledge continues to evolve, I'm sure the community response will continue to evolve, and then how we address it, how we talk about it, how we look at it in social media will also evolve. Give me a second. I'm trying to get into my chat, Kiona. On my desktop, I'm not seeing a whole lot of activity in my phone. And I don't know if that's just because people haven't had much to say yet, or if it has something to do with the difference in dynamic and how the chat moves. Oh wow, yeah, there's a lot in the chat. Um, I can see on my desktop that I'm not seeing immediately on my phone. So I'm now on both my desktop and my phone, so I can see the chat um, in all capital letters from my desktop while still being able to communicate with you. Um, Thank you, Takia Jet, for being able to communicate with you here. There is a little bit of a delay, I see, so I'm going to have to pay attention to my phone as opposed to what's going on in my desktop. I appreciate your questions, your comments, your requests. Do type them in all capital letters so that both Kiona, my moderator, and myself can see them and distinguish them from your well received, all blessed love and peace and salutations and greetings that we share in this sacred space. I want us to be a community, particularly in this environment where we're now having to utilize our virtual skills, our online skills, our social media communication tools to carry on business that we might otherwise have to leave our houses for. So, indeed, readings, divination, ritual work is still moving forward. That which can be ordered, that which can be bought, that which can be mailed is still moving forward. But the ceremony that I have annually in the first week of April, our Dan Obatala White ceremony will not be happening. Right now, it's going to be delayed uh, indefinitely until I get a better idea in terms of calendar and timing and mobility, both here in the city, but also in terms of within the dynamics of the country. I'll then come back and readdress that ceremony and the participants, the initiates, whose initiations are incorporated into that ceremony. I also have not had most recent communication with Oba Obatala from Ile Ife, who also said that he would come and be a part of this ceremony. So all of that would now have to be reorganized, re-coordinated in order to reorganize that annual white ceremony that we have here at the house, and then set a new date to move that forward. Those who are initiating actively right now, that's uninterrupted. Your ability to count, your ability to read, to study, to learn new languages, to incorporate new systems, might even be a supreme divinity. I'm going to respond. That's a great question. um, your ability to tap into some of the information that I'm sharing, that I'm gifting, that I'm instructing in these processes might be a little bit easier for you right now. Now, again, I understand, as I said in 71, I understand that some of you now have people in your house, small children in your house. Are not working, or other parties in your house are not working. So what's happening inside the dynamics of your household might have shifted to some degree. But my hope is that we would now have an opportunity to read those books, to memorize those dialogues, to get our shrines together, get our altars together, to cleanse our creative spaces together. And that brings me into Supreme Divinity's question about cleansings before readings. I don't think having cleansings done, self cleansings done before going into a reading is a bad idea in general. Whether it be now in this particular environment or in any particular environment, the idea of me sort of allowing people into the house is is temporarily on hold. As always, I've always been by appointment. That has not changed in any way. A person would still have to pre-schedule, pre-arrange an appointment with me in order to come into the house. My virtual readings are still operative. The ability to use Skype, the ability to use my Psychic World account to access services and divination is more useful now probably than ever before. But in terms of cleansings in general, just sitting in the house, fasting is a great idea right now when you're trying to conserve your food. You're trying to conserve your paper products. You're trying to be still. Some of us are more prepared for home study, home education, self employment, home employment. This is going to be new for others. Keon, I see your big question mark. Yeah, Supreme Divinity. There's a delay between the desktop and the mobile. Yeah, this is a time for us to do our self work. This is the time to be still, to be quiet, to read those books, to do that study, to use our internet and our social media, not just for entertainment and laughter and comedy and in some cases a little bit of foolishness, but to now extend our social skills, our communication skills and abilities to a greater degree so that we aren't all going out into these now prohibited groups and prohibited gatherings. When I think historically, when was the last time groups were prohibited? Coming together in a group might have constituted, gang affiliation 20 years ago, or some kind of radical racial gathering during the civil rights movement or during Jim Crow era. When is the last time we were, by law, not to gather in large numbers, not to come together in large groups? So we're definitely passing through not just the eye of this germ needle, but we're also passing through the eye of a cultural needle, a societal needle, where just like in the days of 9/11, when we just could not imagine such a thing was happening, and happening in such a way, and that we now had to live life differently. This too is another passage that says that life will never be the same again. How we interact, how we operate, how we carry out our daily lives and our daily activities. Will we get beyond this? Absolutely. Will we come together again? Absolutely. And we'll move on to the next, 100-year or 500-year pandemic or whatever this might turn out to be. But this is not a time, and I don't want to sound like I'm, in agreement with the politicians or the media, but this isn't a time certainly to panic. This is absolutely the time to be doing your cleansings, lave tets, being aware of the state of Ori, the state of your head, meditation, prayer, perceiving the outdoors, perceiving the future, perceiving a time in a day when we will not be under duress, where we will not be under alert, where we will not be as concerned, as we are in this particular moment in time space. Imagine that there are those who sort of live, it's their job to live in this state of alertness. And then there are those in the spirit realm, your empaths, who sort of live in this sort of state of alertness all the time about energy, not just germs, but about energy, about the transitions of auric energy and the ebb and flow of belief and and what we envision in society and how that is often affected by I'm going to respond to that next, Supreme Divinity. um, and thank you so much for your questions and your comments and for participating actively in the show. I'm expecting exactly that thing that I'm now suggesting that we'll begin to see more and more of as people begin to isolate, self isolate in some cases, mandated forms of isolation and separation in order to limit the progression of this disease and this virus. I don't want to start mincing words when we're talking about something so scientifically and medically relevant. So, meditating, cleansings, particularly if you already have your herbs and your cleansing products and those sorts of things already on hand. They're saying this is now not the time to want to stockpile bleach, ammonia, toilet paper. Though we know, and I know people personally who sort of gone and who have done that, and it has fed into this empty shelf thing that's going on right now, where even in ordering products online, you're finding that a lot of stuff is not on the shelves. And I'm seeing in the news and in my community people who are reporting back going to several stores and certain items are not on the shelves. I'm also concerned in predicting a time when people are photographing basements full of product, basements full of toilet paper, and basements full of cleaning supplies where people are going to have to protect themselves. People are going to want to jack these houses and these communities where people are so arrogantly displaying stockholds of product that heaven forbid we are in a parable of a sower. If you've never read that book, if you haven't, as many times as I've mentioned it, Parable of a Sower by Octavia Butler. Read that book right now, Supreme Divinity, if you've never read that. Parable of a Sower by Octavia Butler. And it describes California and really the state of America in a similar scenario. And there's a shortage of gas and there's a shortage of water and I don't want to give away too much of the book, and people are having to stockhold, storehouse certain items, and that's one of the mysteries to the name of this book, Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. So, um, again, if you aren't already a clean person and you don't already sort of pre-plan and keep a budget and sort of shop on a schedule, then you're absolutely out now in competition with the rest of the world for many of the products that could very well become, man, all that we have for some time if they don't get some sort of grip, some sort of control on what's happening and on how it's affecting society. So for my students, for my initiates, for my godchildren, for those under the sound of my voice, this is now the time to be operating in your meditations and your mantras, pulling out your instruments, your paintbrushes and your crayons and your pianos and your keyboards and your instruments, and being creative, if not mobile, if not community active. This is a time to imagine a better world, a time to create a better world. Or maybe, like my good friend, you're a horror writer and a horror novelist. This is the time to create the next great horror movie, the next great thriller. From the energy, from the ashe that's being released right now all over the world by this pandemic, there's very few things that make their way through the news or through social media or through pop culture or through conversation that touch everybody on the planet. I can imagine there are very limited places and spaces right now where, save locations in the world where there is no internet, uh, rural locations and third world locations where there is no technology. There are some places that still exist like that, but I could imagine that there aren't many places in the world now where there's not an awareness that something dramatic is going on. And so it's a rare opportunity that, from the spiritual perspective, that we have a unified connection, a unified cipher in which to connect and build relationship with every other person, every other culture, every other people on the planet. I'm using my social media to talk to Brazil and talk to Ghana, and talk to Nigeria and talk to Egypt and talk to places where there is internet, there is access to internet. Understand places like Ethiopia, you just can't readily get on internet, and bring this type of information, this type of news into your communities. So we have a responsibility now than ever before to take care with what we talk about, what we are sharing, what we're projecting into this space, to not be participants in fake news and misinformation, and people are being sued for that. By the way, I know you've heard Jim Baker, Tammy Faye Baker's husband, is being sued by the federal government for false information, false miracle products, as it relates to this COVID COVID-19, and people's attempt to elicit money and control and favor and popularity off of the backs of pain and global and worldwide trauma. If you have a question or comment, please hit me with it in the live chat. Type it in your questions in all caps. Greetings, Martha, Alicia Ross, Tanya Williams. Yes, planting herbs, planting herbs. Some of us are already in cycle with the spring and planting herbs, uh, bulbs, you know, fruit trees, etc. Since Hurricane Katrina, now more than ever, the value of our gardens and those of us who have been doing that and drying herbs and freezing product for occasions just like this. All of this sort of hokey, new age, spiritual, airway based talk and information is now more important than ever before. Now it has some foundation in which people can connect to their reality. What we don't want is the falsehoods and the imagination to leak into reality and create mental and emotional pandemic like scenarios that only make the reality in which we are having to live with, having to face right now, that much more relevant. I'm also considering, particularly in these circumstances, broadcasting more frequently, but in shorter increments of time. So I might broadcast 30 minutes, 40 minutes twice a day, or even 3 times a day moving forward, depending on the schedule. Of course, we're not filming anything right now, so I'll absolutely have more schedule. Save that of doing readings, divination, initiations remotely and virtually. And more than ever, it's important that you maintain your appointment times. I have one client right now, beloved. I get it and I understand, and life is shifting right now. But you got to maintain your appointment time. I'm a little bit more flexible right now because of what we're all up against, what we're all facing and addressing. But now more than ever before, it's important to maintain your commitments to appointment times, and follow up, and giving others an opportunity to also access and utilize the ability to have access now virtually, to me and to each other as we figure out how we move forward as a people, as a society, as a community, as families, with this pandemic that is COVID 19. I can't figure out how to see all of my chat. Okay, I think I just figured it out. So Alicia Ross, yes, keep working on your planting, working on your herbs and your roots and whatnot. Supreme Divinity is asking, is it okay to use Hoodoo if you are not an initiate? Um, to me, and I'm not being shady, especially with you, beloved, that is the equivalent of, can I administer medicine on myself without instruction? So yes, we have over-the-counter medications that we know we can all walk in and sort of buy and utilize, and that has changed over the years. I can remember a time. I can remember a time when you can walk into a Walgreens or Walmart and buy antihistamines and allergy medication all willy nilly. I can remember a time when you could walk into a drugstore and buy codeine and what's that? Everybody hates Chris. Mama used to give her family, for any accident they had, she would administer this liquid medication in a bottle. Somebody help me. If you ever watch Everybody Hates Chris, his mama, if it was a cold, if they stubbed their toes, she would administer this liquid medication in a bottle. Robitussin, that's right. It was the the Robitussin. Yeah. So I can remember a time when you could walk in and buy any of that, straight off the counter. And if we go back to my grandparents' time, you could legally buy cocaine, heroin, and all sorts of formats, right out of your drugstore. Now, did that make it right or wrong, legal or illegal? The right thing or the wrong thing to do is relevant on your knowledge, your awareness, your ability to want to do the study, to read the bottle, and to go beyond reading the bottle, to hold that bottle up and type that in, into your internet, and then do some further research. Original Entertainment just said religion can be crazy, and I agree because with religion we then start looking at faith, belief, in a way that we take in a different context to the faith we put in the Robitussin bottle, the faith we put in the bottle of aspirin. We take faith every time you open a can of something, or every time you open a bottle of something. You know, you have faith that the water bottling company is doing exactly what they're telling you in the advertisement that they're doing, and that that water has been filtered and purified and came from the clearest, stream in the most untouched region of the most forest reaches of the world, and now it's in a it's in a bottle, and you paying $4 or $5 for it. And we often don't think of that as religion. We often don't think of that as faith. But we'll then turn around and judge the person who puts more weight, more belief, and finds more consistency with what they can grow in their yard, what they can harvest in nature, what they can do in terms of spirit. Now, as a spiritualist, and I've said this before and many times on air, I'm not sort of your hokey, right brain sort of spiritualist. My mom is from the show me state. You have to show me, you have to give me some kind of scientific relevance, whether it be spiritual, medicinal, whatever that manifestation is. So, for instance, my belief in crystal is not just a faith based thing, something that I believe because of something I've read in a book or seen in a movie, but it's based on my own test, my own scientific based test, my own ability to use crystals back in the 80s to disrupt technology at work consistently, my own scientific test back in the 90s of using certain gemstones unawares to others, because that wouldn't be a scientific test. It's got to only be aware to a certain test group and unaware to another test group, and then manifest some level of response. And it's also why I often stress journaling. And right now, more than ever, you've got to journal. I'm journaling now, even COVID 19. I'm journaling the activity, the conversation, how my mom responds to it, how my sister is responding to it. So, yes, beloved, journal your dreams, keep an accurate account of your dreams, your vision. Sometimes you're not physically asleep. Sometimes you're in a daydream. Sometimes you're, in your deep meditation. Stop, breathe, turn to the side, take your note, or grab your keyboard, jot down. That's a physical way of telling your left brain, I acknowledge the importance of that information. I've noted that information. Then breathe again, and then go back into your trance or your meditation and your state, because we're going to find powerful information, powerful trends, powerful synchronicity come forward as we move through yet this challenge, this newest challenge to humanity. I also think about the ancestors, for indeed the ancestors are and should be in all things, not just this particular challenge. Our first line of defense are our ancestors. And so I began thinking about the pandemics and epidemics and the Middle Passage and white supremacy and genocide and all the things that many of us who are alive today have survived because someone before you in your lineage, someone before you in your bloodline survived. Um, Utilize this time to look at documentaries. So I've been watching this ongoing series. I think it's called The History of Humanity on Amazon, and it's talking about humanity from really the beginnings of time up to the present, but from very different perspectives, from a germological perspective, or from perspective of warfare, or from a perspective of technology. So it covers many areas of focus and concentration that we might be thinking about or even imagining um, right now. So, for instance, it talked about the Black Plague, and how it devastated a great deal of the world population all over the world, and how it affected economy, and how it affected and then created innovations that showed up in technology and in transportation. Each challenge that we face as an individual, as a community, as a organization, as a culture or a country or a society, has its pros and its cons. We learn the lessons. There are certain losses and challenges that come with learning those lessons. And then there are those pros, those positives, those new innovations, those new ideas, those new technologies that then arise and come out of us being faced with challenges, individual life challenges, but also the more communal societal challenges in which we are faced with right now. And yes, indeed, absolutely, eating your fruits, your vegetables, your herbs. Listen, understanding that, we can't now all decide to get on board and we're going to do this right now and today. Uh, some of your stores don't even have toilet paper. Okay. And when we consider changes in our diet, in our eating, there has to be some time. There has to be a process. Now, your body is going to regenerate every cell within it. Every 7 years, every cell in your body regenerates. So any new uh, innovation that you make in terms of how you eat, how you drink, it's often not going to show up most immediately, or most overnight, but might need some time moving forward. And now we're looking at not just what we're eating and how we're applying, but gaining access to. So as things sort of balance out, and our shelves are sort of restocked, some of our suppliers are restocked. I'm sure many of you are now going to rethink how you shop, how you buy, um, what you stock, you know, moving forward, what has shelf life, versus, those things that we need to quickly restock. And I think some of us are still, in terms of wishful thinking, anticipating that this is going to dry up quickly. We're anticipating warmer weather. We're anticipating the spring and the summer. We're anticipating science, doing something, making some sort of progress. I'm going to say in the coming 30 to 90 days. That's sort of a natural cycle of life. Beloved, who's asking the question about fruits and herbs in the chat, it was right in my face a minute ago. Original entertainment. Herbs tend to possess healing, meditative, not meditative, medicative properties that we can find in a dictionary, find online, that translates into nutrients, vitamins, mineral compositions that do both toxic but also helpful things in our body, provided we know how much and in what combinations. Fruit, on the other hand, too, has its nutrients, its vitamins, and its chemicals. But I've been taught, and Dr. Sabi taught, that fruit also played a key role in terms of fiber, metabolism, and sort of the process of things breaking down. You can overdo one of anything. You can get too much fiber. You can get too much fruit. You can get too much meat. You can get too much of anything, really. So all diets must have some balance. All nutrition must have some balance. So we eat in quantities and in portions. Often, particularly here in the West, we follow that circle with the four sections in it, and now that's been reevaluated, that we might need to readjust how we look at the food groups. Dairy versus your legumes versus your grains, versus your fruits and vegetables. And some of us need more of something than others. Um, there's a great deal of miseducation out there. For instance, I'm diabetic, and I know other diabetics, and it's a common notion that fruit carries high sugar, and therefore we shouldn't have fruit. But there is natural sugars, and there are natural ways of processing sugars that are healthy, and indeed crucial and necessary to nutrition, as opposed to artificial and man-made produced uh, sugars like cane sugar, white sugar, even synthetic sugars are being questioned in terms of their ability to mimic real sugar in the body. Your body still sort of responds to them, acts like, it's still getting real cane sugar, even with some of the. I was trying to get my chat box to open, even with some of the artificial blue and pink and yellow and other sweeteners that are on the market. So I tend to lean towards coconut, for instance, or fruits that have sugar, honey, even, as opposed to cane sugar or even artificial sugars. And when looking at how do you save up, stockpile, store stevia, that plant sugar substitute is a herb that you could be planting in your garden right now. As we look at what are we going to plant in our gardens for 2020, stevia is a plant. You used to be able to get it at Home Depot and Lowe's. I don't know how easy that's going to be this season, but stevia is a plant that can be grown and harvested naturally as a sweetener from your garden. The Obey a Bible, yeah, I'm familiar with that. Many other books that are on the market. I'm a proponent of reading everything, beloved. So people often ask me, what should I read? There's no top 10, there's no specific set. I think to be educated, to be qualified, to be knowledgeable, one needs to read and study and reread everything that is available. Read the footnote, the cliff note, read the fine print, do the research of the individual words and the word usage. And indeed, in a time like this, when we are looking for something to do, which does not require being out in the public or out amongst groups of people, uh, this is the time now we can do intense and deep study. My heart goes out for those who are going to now be affected in terms of their ability to work, to make an income, to feed their families, to keep the lights and the power on, to stay housed. It's going to be a challenging time for many of us. And I want to do my part to the best of my ability in the arena in which I have my specialty and my expertise to support my community, my family, my friends, my godchildren, my initiates, those who support me. I'm here to support you, and vice versa. And I look forward to many more opportunities now, today and in the coming days, for us to come together like this and to create new, even more creative spaces like this for us to share our awareness, our news, heaven forbid, our needs as we move forward. I can see a time when we might have to ration and share and trade and barter by way of the mail, and by way of virtual reality. So I'm going to end the show for now. I'll be forward again. Always, I'll be forward again momentarily. I look forward to meeting and greeting you here. Please have your questions, your comments, your requests in all capital letters so that I can see them and distinguish them during these broadcasts and be able to address them out loud while we're live on air. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit with me, uh, for a moment of positivity, for a moment of peace, for a moment of hope, for a moment of support, and understanding that we still have each other, those of us who share this sacred squared circle of gods and goddesses, we still have each other. If you need me, email me, reach out to me, and I will most certainly do the same if I need you. All is truly and indeed a blessing. Until next time, Ashe.